Yep.
Oh yeah, music.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the very first ever F This Movie Zoom. We are all quarantined, alone in our houses, spread across the country with the exception of Jan and JB and myself, and Erica, of course, are sharing a screen together. But we wanted to all get together for the first time, really only in a few, it's only been a few weeks because you guys were all out for F This Movie Fest, which was like the last thing that happened pre-quarantine. But now we are all reunited over Zoom, minus Doug. We're missing Doug. Doug may be able to join us in the course of this meeting. But we were really wanting to get together to celebrate our 10th anniversary, which is coming up on May 14th, 2020. It will be 10 years since we dropped our first podcast on the
Jazz hands.
James Cameron classic, Avatar. How's everybody's quarantine going so far?
It's better now.
Yeah.
Aww.
I'm wearing pants.
I love my kids. I love them.
The face of a man who loves his kids.
A joke I've been making fairly frequently lately is that since I retired, I've actually been practicing social distancing. So by the time this came down the pike, I'm really good at it.
You're like an expert. Yeah.
How's things going with the AMC Stubbs card? Are you still
Well, Adam, do you want to take this or should I?
It's suspended indefinitely.
They're not charging us, which I thought was
Yeah.
decent.
Yeah.
Objectively, a viewer could see that Thos is the one handling this the least well.
It's the hair and the
Nobody's
green.
dead here. Nobody.
The glare and the hair is like. We got
Everyone's
some
looking at my
reanimator
screen and
hats
saying, well, there's no shortage of food there. He seems healthy.
No, we're all good.
At a carnival, but thankfully it is an empty carnival, so she is practicing social distancing.
This carnival happened in 2017.
Is it an abandoned carnival, which would make you like the villain of the
Of a Scooby-Doo
Your
crew.
secret
You wouldn't have
lair.
gotten away
He is
with it. too.
abandoned at this moment.
And
I know
every one of those
Martin
Ferris wheel
Short-
cars is full of Purell.
I want to go there.
Yeah. I want to go to there as well. Yeah.
That should be in the claw machine. Well, we had some questions from some listeners and people on Twitter that I wanted to throw out to you guys. I'm going to pose the first one probably just to JB because it comes from Daniel Epler. He wants to know if we have a top 4 pre-code movies.
Well, I
can
got to
only-
tell you,
Hi,
I
Danielle.
saw that on the Twitter machine. So I sat down and I gave it some thought. And here's what I came up with for Daniel Epler. If you go online and ask this question, every effing website says the same thing. Babyface, Barbara Stanwyck. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Babyface. I don't think it's that outre. So Daniel Epler, here's what you want to look for. If you're looking for pre-code horror, you can't do better than Murders in the Zoo from 1933 that just came out on Blu-ray. Boy, does that got some disturbing shit in it. The Black Cat from 1934, which I think we're all familiar with, where even though it was cut up pretty badly, we still understand that someone's being skinned alive. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which Epler actually put out as a suggestion because, as Patrick has pointed out on a podcast, it's real clear what's going on in his relationship with Ivy, and it's really, really disturbing and really adult, and he's a sadist. And then Freaks, of course, which even in 2020 is remarkably disturbing. One of us, Google Gobble, one of us. If you're looking for sex, Daniel, what you want to do is you want to track down Sign of the Cross.
Oh boy.
Oh, see, you just mention it and they start going at it like little bunnies.
No, keep going.
Sign of the Cross is a 1933 Cecil B. DeMille film, and this was during his phase where he was this crazy hypocrite, where he did all these biblical pictures so that he could feature dancing women in orgies and stuff. And then at the end, they all repent, and then everyone's forgiven. But Sign of the Cross is pretty out there. And also Tarzan and his mate, which was made in 1934 and features a nude swim. Jane jumps into the river in her altogether, and I don't think it's Maureen O'Sullivan, but it's somebody all naked swimming
Is
around.
there any other way to swim?
Erica, relax.
When I was on the swim team.
For 2 seconds, relax.
Also, Gold Diggers of 1933, remarkably candid about what's going on with some of the dancing girls. And then finally, if you're looking for violence, sex and violence, Public Enemy with James Cagney from 1931 and Scarface from 1932. Remarkably adult and incredibly violent, both of those films.
I believe the question asked for 4.
Yeah, right?
But here I defer to Erica, and I have answered the question in the style of Erica Bromley.
Ties are allowed.
Because Patrick, notice what I did. I subdivided it into 4 categories of pre-code films. And now
can I interject?
I take my leave of you.
Can I just interject that I'm the one quarantined with him?
Interject.
We stand a legend, Jan. We stand a legend.
If I could throw one in there, Babyface. I'm not sure if that was meant.
You scared him away, Mike.
I'll actually toss in Red Dust. I really, really like Red Dust.
Oh, the Popa film joins us.
I'd like to toss in Trouble in Paradise and Design for Living. Both of them are Ernst Lubitsch films, and Design for Living in particular is fun because it features a lady and 2 dudes just living together and enjoying life in romantic ways. So that's pretty fun and pre-code.
Trouble in Paradise is really great, as is Red Dust.
I relate to a lady and 2 dudes.
Rosalie's like, I'm going to say something smart.
I don't know if it's pre-haze, but was it Happened One Night pre-haze, or was that?
That is pre-code.
I like that one too.
I like Murders in the Rue Morgue with Bela Lugosi. That was really good too.
Especially at the beginning, when it's pretty explicit about what some of his experiments are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
It's got a great swing sequence too, where they do this weird camera trick with it. It's awesome.
All right, next question. Matt Bledsoe says, one of my favorite parts of the show has always been all the great, out of nowhere, off-topic stories told on the podcast. Do you have a favorite or one that stands out as the most memorable or surprising?
We all defer to Mark on.
Yeah. One of my faves.
Wait, he's been snatched again. Oh, don't do that, Mark. I got scared.
I don't know why everyone's referring to me.
You know what? Can I share one?
Yes.
I'm gonna share one. It was the first podcast I ever listened to. Doug telling the story about the Haverick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was crying laughing so hard. That was one of my favorites. Probably still is my favorite. Especially Patrick's reaction, who clearly has known him for years and had never heard that story up to that point.
That is true.
Yeah, I had the best seat in the house for the Bittner He-Man story because I got to watch Patrick unravel as
That's what I was going to bring up.
Which, by the way, saved that podcast because we were talking about Leprechaun returns, right? Like, we needed something, and
yeah, I don't think anybody remembers it for our insight into Leprechaun.
I was going to say my favorite is Mark Jones.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Mark Jones is a favorite to do. I don't know if he's a favorite to listen to.
Who's gonna jump for the Mark Jones first?
I don't do it as well.
Romero?
I don't. I can't do it on the
stage because he's small.
Look, I got a small Ryan Gosling here.
Have you guys watched Mark Jones' Rumpelstiltskin yet?
Not yet.
Oh my God.
Is it good?
Right. It's a tiny delight.
Adam, think of a double for that. That'll be our next quarantine double feature.
You're going to have to spend like $40 on the DVD, but if you're good with that, I'm good.
It's fine. Anything from Mark Jones.
Yeah.
Anybody have any others?
Favorite stories?
Yeah.
I like Adam Foss walking back in real time Green Lantern. I thought that was fun. And him saying that Dukes of Hazzard was like one of the best movies of the 2000s or something.
Listen, it wasn't even close. It's not even close to what I said.
I'm pretty sure it's on record that you said it was like at least the best of 2005.
No, I remember that.
Like,
and then,
you were like Dukes of Hazzard, Syriana, Munich.
on a much later podcast, I went to see that to show you how long ago this was. Second Run with Doug.
Wait,
And we're
with
sitting-
who?
Doug. Our
Doug who?
Sorry, Doug.
Wait, who?
Up, there's the man.
Oh!
Doug, you're supposed to wear a Phillies hat. You messed up.
Way to make it.
Hi, everyone.
Yes.
Oh.
Doug.
Hi.
Doug.
Doug, I was just singing your praises, but I realized that this is not a Green Lantern story. This is a Transformers story. I had never seen a Transformers movie, and I went to see one with you at the Patio Theater, and it's the Transformers movie with a real astronaut in it.
Oh, yes.
There's a Transformers movie. Is it Buzz Aldrin?
Yes. It's Buzz
Yes.
Aldrin.
And
It's
we're
Transformers
watching the movie
Buzz Aldrin.
and trying to enjoy it, and it's impossible to enjoy it. And then Doug, bless his heart, leans over and says, Buzz Aldrin has medicine.
No.
Buzz Aldrin needs medicine that only Michael Bay can give him. And that made the entire evening worthwhile.
It's been great seeing everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. I'm so sorry I'm late.
It's
okay.
You're not late. You're on time.
You're on time.
You're on California time.
Yeah.
LA Doug.
Quarantine
Right.
time.
Don't let
All
them
right,
do that.
continue. Don't let me interrupt the conversation. Let's talk about movies. I love movies. Star Trek Voyager is not a movie.
Did Doug ask Patrick questions about movies?
Patrick, is Star Trek Voyager a movie?
It is, yes.
Wait, Patrick, does Data fuck?
All right, here's another question.
Appreciate that.
Gil B, who asks, are there any movies that you've come around on over the last 10 years? I know your turnaround on Avatar has been discussed before, particularly notable as it was your first step. Any others? Has anybody had a movie that over the last 10 years that they've really come around on? Like, I will say, obviously, not only Avatar,
Pitch
but
Perfect.
Italian Horror is a big one for me. And I won't say I've come around on them, but I feel like in the course of the last 10 years, I've kind of discovered Kung Fu films because I wasn't something that I was into. Mark on taking credit for that.
No.
But through Junesploitation and people recommending different Kung Fu films, I've become a big fan of the martial arts movie. And so that's not necessarily coming around, but it's something that I have discovered over the course of this movie being a thing. But I don't know if anybody else has something that they've either come around on or kind of discovered over the last 10 years.
I would quickly say I have a lot more patience for Westerns than I used to. And I think for the same reason, just like Junesploitation related things or just you showing me stuff. And I just had like a wall up to Westerns for a really long time. So
My film professor at U of I, who now teaches somewhere in California, David Desser, look him up. He's on the audio commentary on the Criterion Seven Samurai, used to famously say that you cannot claim to love movies and hate Westerns. Now, I'm ashamed of this, Patrick, but there's two movies that I've come around on. And I feel bad because I was mean, really mean, the first time. Let Me In is not bad. It has a lot going for it. And when we did the podcast, I was so in love with Let the Right One In, I considered the quick American remake to be an affront, and I was shutting myself off from it. But the American version is actually very good. It's very entertaining, and I had tunnel vision.
It kept telling you, "Let me in,"
and I would not let it in. And the second one, I have to apologize to Adam because I believe this podcast was the three of us. I was really mean to the Evil Dead remake. It's not bad, and it has a lot of things going for it. Again, I was protecting myself from the film because I like the original so much. And if you go back and listen to the podcast, which I recommend that everyone does, Adam kind of liked it. And for an hour, I badger him into submission until he admits that it wasn't good. So not my proudest moment.
I remember thinking it was like all right, and I still kind of feel that way. I never had like a bump on the Evil Dead remake.
I had a big bump, I think years later, because what year did that come out?
2013.
Years later, I saw it again, and it was like seeing a different movie. It was like, oh, this ain't bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's a masterpiece, but it's not bad.
On our pre-code podcast, I was pretty hard on Babyface, starring.
Did it just leave you cold, Mike? It leaves me cold.
No, but I did on a podcast list Hellboy 2 as one of my least favorite superhero movies, and they've done a complete 180 on that one. Love that movie now.
The popular critical consensus on that seems to be going up and up. A lot of people, I think, are reappraising it.
It's really great.
I'm gonna real quick throw out the Mangler, which I watch from the perspective of Patrick. I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times now, and I watch it through Patrick's eyes, and I go, "No, this is great. This is fucking great."
Wait, is that your Patrick impression?
No, my Patrick impression involves a Dr. Pepper, which I don't have available right now. So
you grab a Dr. Pepper and you say, "It's fine,"
and I'm like, Toby Hooper. Right. Thank you, Erica. Yes.
I had that a little bit with Cloud Atlas. Like when I saw it, I kind of fell in line with everybody critically was saying like, oh, it's a mess at best. Like it's got good stuff in it, but it's not like a real cohesive, good movie. And then I remember when I heard Patrick kind of explain his love for it and kind of how much of a unicorn it was in terms of like what they put out in Hollywood, it really enhanced my appreciation of it. And same with Avatar to a great degree, where like when we were doing the Twitter Fest, I just thought to myself at one point towards the climax, I'm like, how do you even like conceive putting this together? Like I can barely like send out an email at 9 a.m. on a Monday. But like this guy is like, look at this. Like, how do you do that? How do you have the imagination and the skill to make this? So.
Oh, Erica.
It's not a screenshot. Erica's actually met those aliens.
I see you.
Look, Silent Hill, guys. Silent Hill.
Not yet.
One day. One day, probably.
Not yet.
JB, you're almost there on Avatar, though, right? So close.
I have been advised by my lawyers that it's my right to not answer questions on the grounds that it may incriminate me.
Not a coming around, but similar to Erica, Patrick's had me watch Westerns. Like I've been assigned them. So I'm starting to get like those more and more. And as well as Italian horror has been, because those were big blind spots. So I'm not completely there on Italian horror. It still sometimes leaves me cold, but I can appreciate it.
I just want to throw out real quick, some of my favorite episodes of F This Movie are the Patrick and Robin like showdowns where it's like
So good.
because I love them both, but like they are of two different sensibilities, and there is this idea of like I'm going to expose you to this. Well, I'm going to expose you to this, and we're going to talk about it. And just knowing you both, like it's just so fun to hear that like love of these two sort of like incongruous things, but like you find a way over the course of the show to make them work. It's some of my favorite episodes. I just really love them.
I'm working on the sound of music,
Patrick,
Robin.
huh?
I'm working on the Sound of Music.
So we have another one at some point coming up, but it's me making Patrick watch sometimes anime and mostly musicals and mostly older
Anything
movies.
that's 3 hours long.
And everything is 3 hours long.
3 hours, she wants me to watch it.
And him being like, please watch something from the 70s, a Western, and some sort of horror.
Yeah. Yeah. Doug loves the Beyond now, thanks to This Movie.
I was a fan of Just Give Me a Minute to Change, so I was really not sure how I'd react to They Grow Up So Fast. Bruno Pomero's directorial follow-up delivered.
Hey, Mike. Woo!
You did better than Blomkamp.
I came around on the Beyond, and I came around on the original Dawn of the Dead.
Adam and I came around on X versus Sever.
Shut up. That never happened. I can't even as a joke, I can't let that stand.
Are you speaking of Ballistic X versus Sever? Babyface X versus Sever.
You know, I watched that on a Sunday morning after this movie fest, and we were both just like laying on the floor, like, what is this?
It's defeated me, for sure.
That movie beat us.
That's how I felt watching Pluto Nash today, too. I wanted to hang off of the balcony by my big toe.
Why would you do that?
Why would you watch Pluto Nash, you mean, right?
It was for reserve seating.
Reserve seating, Jen.
Oh,
okay. That's a good reason for anything.
The bomb.
I call that my Jeremy Renner.
Yeah.
Pluto Nash.
Yeah. Robin, did you watch Bright?
I will never watch Bright.
No.
The only thing in my life I'll ever stand firm on is never watching Bright.
Are you gonna watch Bright 2 when that comes out?
No.
Like just jump right in?
That's never coming out, right? Right?
Well,
I think it will.
Oh, it's coming out.
Yeah.
it depends on how long this pandemic is, you know.
JB, come back.
No, he's
Jan, what did you do to him?
Yeah. And I'm back.
He's getting more pre-code.
I watched the director's cut of Dr. Sleep today.
What'd you think?
I mean, I was already like obsessed with the movie, but I loved the director's cut too.
Director's cut is
$13 on Amazon Prime.
Director's cut is so good.
I just went and watched Babyface. I'm about to reverse my position on Babyface.
Any other turnarounds or discoveries before we move on?
Guys, it's everything. It's every single movie is better after you hear one of the people in my view here, my gallery view, if somebody loves a movie or even somebody has a thought about a movie, any one of you, it's always better afterward. If I'm driving in my car and I'm listening to, any one of these people talk about a movie, I always want to go home and watch it. And even if I don't like it, I will always appreciate it more because I have the thoughts and the feelings of one of you in my head when I'm watching it. And that means the world to me.
That's odd
So
because
true.
I've always thought it's always better with lots of cheddar.
I was going to say that I would leave draft day on any time because Adam Risky would be in my heart and in my mind.
Any day of the week.
Better because of how much he loves it.
You get out of the shower on a Sunday morning, you will watch draft day balls naked on the couch for the entire 2-hour runtime.
I don't even have balls. Yes.
And you'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
Draft Day and The Intern should be on TCM every fucking night.
The Intern is a masterpiece.
They fucking kick the shit out of most movies on TCM.
The Intern is fucking great.
Or otherwise.
This is
They're
escalated
that good.
wildly.
Totally.
Thank you, Mark.
Escalated so fast.
Wild.
Speaking of Adam Risky,
Which I'm
with the
always.
world in social isolation, have you gone to one Schaumburg place with a big ladder and stolen the Ninja Turtles poster yet? I would have think you would have done that a month ago.
No, not yet. I want it to be where it should be, and like,
yeah,
it's a testament to. We'll get back to this.
Erica's pillow
Returns to normal.
Yeah, it's a monument.
Up, Rob's board. He's playing cards.
Adam, do you have the pillow?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Wait, is that a euphemism?
JB, top 3 Brando performances. Go.
Nice.
Streetcar Named Desire, On the Waterfront, Superman.
Sold.
I'm joking about Superman.
The next question comes from Grant Hurlbert, he of the great F This Movie Fest artwork.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, wow.
Prince. Grant, I want prints of that to hang in my home.
I will pay.
Did somebody say Prince?
I thought too.
Wait,
doesn't
Grant
have to
was
be a-
dreaming when he wrote this. Forgive him if it.
It doesn't have to be a top 5, but just movies that cheer you up on a bad day or during a global pandemic. Let's start with Rosalie because she hasn't gotten a word in yet.
Seriously.
I love this question. I have a lot of go-tos, so I'll try to do a top 5, but I might do a top Erica 5, which means more than 5. So definitely Clueless, because that's like one of my all-time faves. Can't be sad when you're watching it. Blast from the Past, because Brendan Fraser is totally the best.
That's a good one.
So
Yeah.
fun.
And I also love Charade, because who
Yes!
doesn't love, a little
Love Charade.
60s spy movie action. I'm a huge fan of Splash with Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah. I love that movie.
We showed that to our kids like a couple of years ago, and they liked it too.
Yeah, I have not seen the Disney Plus edited version, and I don't care to. I'll just go to my DVD. I think that was 5, but I'm still gonna do a couple.
You got one more. You can go one more, girl.
No, seriously.
So,
Prepared for this question.
I'm gonna go Working Girl, and
Yeah, this guy.
To Be or Not to Be. The Lubitsch. I can't stop talking about Lubitsch apparently, but that movie is awesome, especially if you're like depressed by political things, because it's a bunch of people in a theater taking on the Nazis, and it's hilarious and it's great. So
When
that's my
Jan Jan worked in an office, she had the poster for Working Girl on the wall of her office.
nice. I love it.
Goofy movie.
Fantastic.
Oh, the Goofy movie.
Goofy
Love
movie.
it.
And the first 2 that came to my brain were
Oh.
Goofy movie and A Knight's Tale. Those are my 2.
Love The Knight's Tale.
Always make me feel better.
I would go with Little Shop of Horrors.
Mm.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Dark, and Annihilation, because
Ooh.
it's a comfort movie for me.
Annihilation. There's much been going on.
Sure.
Whoa.
You know, this isn't
Annihilation would become a documentary. Who knew?
This isn't one of my usual go-tos, but I watched with my kids the other day. I was just feeling really bummed out about everything, and I watched Zootopia with my kids, and that was like the perfect movie at the perfect time. I don't know. That movie's great. I love that movie. So anyway,
Loving your hair so much, Adam.
keep going with it.
You're staying a legend.
Robin, later on, we're going to do the invention exchange with Dr. Clayton Forrester.
I've been
You
watching.
like it very much.
I've been visiting my parents regularly, and so one of the things that we do is that we have dinner and we watch a movie because it's an easy thing to do. But then because my parents are older, and so it has to be something that we all like. and they don't have like a particular taste necessarily, but like I'm not gonna bring like John Wick 3 over because it's not gonna work, right? I'll have a great time, but and so we've actually watched the Oceans movies, Oceans 11, 12, and 13. And I'm like, I forgot how much I like these. And I also forget like how old those are because the first one came out in 2001. I completely forgot about that because it just seems like they could have made that movie like last year or something like that. But it's just like the stakes are like low, and there's no one's gonna get like shot really. There's no like violence. It's all like cool and like I don't know. It kind of lives in a nice like middle ground where it's like everything's fine, you know. But it's still entertaining and engaging. And
is Ocean's 11 a perfect movie?
Yes.
It might be.
Like, I mean, dead serious. Like,
No,
I think Ocean's 11, 2001 is a perfect movie.
I was going to say, whenever it's on, I watch it. Recently on the podcast, I revealed how much I wanted to watch Ocean's 12. That's a story for another day. Adam Risky can tell you about that one. So for comfort movies, mine was Ocean's 11, 12 Angry Men, Shattered Glass, and It's the Mad, 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 Mad World. There's a new cable station that they're foisting off on us because on my cable, they got rid of Cinemax. I don't get Cinemax anymore. They made it something you had to pay extra for, even though I have the package where supposedly you get everything. And they took away Cinemax.
That's what Jan said.
Rob can't believe this. They took away Cinemax and they added something called Screen Picks. And Screen Picks is awful.
That's the name of my YouTube channel.
But Screen Picks shows It's a Mad, 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 Mad World about every 3 days.
And he watches it like every 3 days. And every time that movie is on.
It's like a 3-hour movie, right?
Thing.
This is a girl's bike. This is a bike for a little girl.
Jan,
Rat race.
Jan, I think that I speak for all of us here when I think that you need to have a daily What's John Doing Today blog. Like, I would read that every day. What John's done that day.
Or just like film like a 10-second video every day of whatever he's doing. I would absolutely watch that. Just string it together after a while. Like, I would
Thursday, John went into the bathroom with one of those test tube brushes. What on earth could he possibly be doing?
Movies that have helped me during this pandemic. We showed my girls the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Those movies are magic. Raising Arizona and What's Up, Doc?
Homero, which is the best of the Rings trilogy?
What's the best or what's my favorite? It might be two different answers. My favorite's Fellowship.
Your favorite?
My favorite's Fellowship.
Okay.
Agree.
I only recently saw the theatrical editions. I bought the theatrical Blu-ray pack, or excuse me, the extended Blu-ray pack for $10 or whatever a couple months ago. And because I had only ever seen them in theaters. I had seen the original, all three when they came out, and I hadn't seen them since. So I sat for a weekend and watched the extended editions. And Fellowship was the one that held up in terms of start to finish, plot, character. That's the one that held up the best for me. So
it's amazing. And poor Doug. You were introduced to those movies, right? In one day, all three extended editions.
I was gonna say, didn't you guys do that once?
Let's do it again, you guys.
It was so fun.
It was so fun, but I don't know if that's the best way to do it.
I'm coming over and I'm bringing whiskey.
Too much fun? My favorite Lord of the Rings movie is the longest one. Whichever, the one with the donkey and had the ring with Kirk. I think he was the captain. Kirk.
Because there's more to love. TCM has been showing a lot of Peter Bogdanovich movies because they got that podcast that they're endlessly promoting. And a couple nights ago, I watched What's Up, Doc, and I hadn't seen it in a long time. Good Lord. That film holds up handsomely. That's a great movie.
So funny.
And then they showed Nickelodeon, which is unwatchable.
Yeah.
You can't do that on television. It's pretty good.
Are we
I
still
had
talking
4 real quick that I watched during quarantine, and it wasn't like I sought them out. It was just stuff that I watched that like really upped my kind of mood that day. So I had Drop Zone, which is just, I've been on a 90s action kick, and that was like one I'd never seen. It's just ridiculous, and it made me laugh harder than anything that month. It was great. Vampire Circus, which was kind of an amicus-y horror movie, or Hammer movie. I really like that one. Gladiator with Cuba Gooding Jr. and James Marshall is amazing. Old Chicago, 92, great deep cast, wonderful sports movie. And then One False Move, like I loved it, but it really just completely blew me away in a whole to another level when I rewatched it last week.
No, that's a great movie. Is Drop Zone the one with the elephant?
No, that's Operation Dumbo Drop.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
No, Drop Zone was Wesley Snipes. It was the volcano to Terminal Velocity's Dante's Peak.
Okay, I'm writing this down.
Oh. Terminal Velocity.
Drop
Wait,
Zone.
what?
Al Pacino.
Yes.
Hashtag zero seating.
Comfort movies, I would turn to Blade Runner, anything Star Wars,
Right.
or any of the movies. Like there was a time when we watched a lot of movies when my son still lived at home. Just we watched a lot of the same movies that he loved, and he would want to watch over and over when he was a kid. And so I associate those movies with just family movie love together. Like,
I'm
and
sorry, is this
those
Jen?
movies would include Bowfinger, Mystery Men, Oh Brother Where Art Thou,
Big Fish.
Big Fish. So there was a few that he really loved, and we would just watch over and over.
He had good taste because he was 3.
No.
Is this Jan B, author of Everything Seems Significant, the Blade Runner poems?
Oh, I've heard of her. She's
Yeah,
famous.
yeah.
I've heard of her.
Mm-hmm. Everything's
her autograph.
significant like this movie.
I'm gonna
Actually,
get
it's
my,
the only
I'm
thing
gonna-
that's significant.
I'm gonna get my copy signed next time I'm in Chicago.
Please do.
I miss Elk
I like
Grove
your
screenings
optimism.
just to hear Jan's like Q&A answers, which are unbelievable. They're like
not fair.
commencement speeches.
Hey.
Guys, my fingers aren't straight.
Nice plug.
Ew.
Checks in the mail, Erica.
It makes a great gift.
She wrote
It does.
an entire
It really
book
does.
about Blade Runner.
Thank you, Eric. But can I just say that during the pandemic and like the news is so and people are so and like I have days and I still have to work. Like I've always worked from home, so I still have to work from home. But I have days where like all I want to do is just like watch a movie. Just like so kind of any movie is my comfort movie. Just the fact that movies exist feels like my comfort movie.
When the quarantine started, I wrote a Pope column, and I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was. When this whole thing started, I couldn't believe how quickly people became like us on the Twitter machine. I've watched 6 movies today, and it's helping me get through it. And tomorrow, I'm shooting for 9.
Guys, I am knee deep in the Saw franchise.
That'll cheer you up.
I got the Saw 8-pack Blu-ray for like $9 last week. I'm on like Saw 5. Any thoughts on the Saw franchise? Anybody have a preferred Saw film?
The podcast on that.
Yeah, they did a franchise. By the way, Rob, all these deals you're talking about,
yes,
this is shoplifting, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's
Well,
just
I'm
your
Italian.
euphemism. I got 10 Blu-rays for
John,
$3.
you and
That's
I
your
are-
way of saying you stole it, right?
John, you and I are paisan. You know that we get things off the back of a truck.
Well, it fell off the back of a truck, and
It
there's
fell
no
off
way
the
to
back of
stop
a-
that.
Just
But
like
if
all the diapers in South Philly when I was a child. Yes.
If something
of course.
falls off the back of the truck, it can't be helped.
Exactly. No, Best Buy is doing a curbside pickup deal recently. If you go on bestbuy.com, they've got all kinds of deals on all kinds of merchandise. And I go over to the Best Buy up the street, and they've got very reasonable deals. And I got the Saw franchise. I'd only seen the first two. And I said, 8 Saw movies for $9? Hell, that's worth my time. And
I've got $9 in 18 hours.
Exactly. And I'm on Saw 5 now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward. Patrick says 6, and I'm looking forward to 6. That's what
I have never seen a single Saw movie.
I remember I'm a big fan of bottle episodes. I like movies that take place in one place. And I remember seeing the first Saw, and that was good. I like that. I like that, mythology. And I saw the second one, and then I kind of dropped off. But now I'm knee deep back in the Saw franchise, and I finished 5 before we started, and I'm looking forward to the rest.
Spoiler: they end awesome. The last.
Really?
Sixth landing.
Jan took advantage of the Best Buy pickup thing. Oh, I've alienated Rob. Her laptop blew up, and that's what she had to do to get a new laptop, and that worked out great.
All right.
No one mentioned Pretty Woman as a comfort movie. What's wrong?
Yeah, what
What's going
I said
on?
it was a
The
curbside
podcast
pickup.
about it was a comfort podcast.
It was a curbside pickup.
Yeah.
But wasn't
That was
are
the
you
last
saying
podcast.
that?
Oh, sorry.
Are you saying Julia Roberts was Richard Gere's curbside pickup?
Do the
Pretty
math,
Women?
JB.
Is that the?
Do the
is that
math.
the-
And they didn't have to worry about, oh wait, they did have to worry about viruses. But that was the last podcast recorded in our basement before it flooded. I shouldn't have brought that up right now. Is that bringing it down?
All right, R.I.P.
Go
basement.
back to the junior mints.
No, we.
Oh, is my chair okay?
Your chair's okay.
Yes.
We need a
I'm glad
moment.
you're worried about all the right stuff.
No, appreciation for the Bromley basement. Just acknowledgement, and
I would pour one out, but I don't want to ruin more carpet.
I'll pour one out.
Eric, any good quarantine viewing? Or are you
I have
mostly
to
writing?
figure out. What's that now?
Any good quarantine viewing, or are you mostly writing music?
Music. Actually, I haven't. I think I've watched like 2 or 3 movies this whole time. I like having the family here. We watched some movies with the family. So I saw like Onward, and we've been watching a lot of Little House on the Prairie, which is not a movie, but it's surprisingly gritty. I'm shocked at how intense that is, but that's not a movie, so I'm okay, thanks.
All right, Doug, top 5 most comforting episodes of Star Trek Voyager.
The one where Kes is in the sick bay, that one's pretty good. No, I've been watching a lot of Star Trek, a lot of Last Dance, if you're a Bulls fan, which I know most people here are, which is not a movie, to Eric's point, so whatever.
Except for Adam, who's wearing the Phillies hat.
That's yes. I watched Generations for the first time in a long time, and Generations actually is better than I remembered. Star Trek. Contact, Ocean's 11, whatever John was talking about with Cinemax and his package. I heard that a lot, and so that's my comfort is usually close to John's package.
All right, we got another question here from Jeff Glover, who says, I've always been impressed with how casually and easily you're able to articulate what you like or dislike about a movie. Thank you, Jeff Glover. Are there any movies out there that you like or love, but have a hard time explaining why?
That's perfect.
Hi, Jeff.
For
all
me,
of them, is that an answer?
what's that?
All of them for me.
For me, it was Cloud Atlas for a long time. And then Jan agreed to do the show. And I was like, oh, well, if Jan's going to do it, I can just take the back seat. And I knew that she would be able to articulate what's great about Cloud Atlas. So I didn't have to worry as much about sounding smart.
We did that podcast on Cloud Atlas, and then when it was over, you're like, we talked for almost 2 hours, and I couldn't believe it because I thought, oh, I guess he's stopping because I'm not good. It's kind of short.
That's what I do. I give the
2 hours about Cloud Atlas.
I've been there.
Patrick likes an hour.
There are a lot of movies I think that I'm still like intimidated by, that I don't feel like I'm ready to talk about. There's probably like some Kubrick movies that I wouldn't podcast on. Eyes Wide Shut is one because like I know I would want to read Trom Novelle. We did like 15 minutes on Eyes Wide Shut, Adam and I did, when we did our 9 from 99 series, and I was like, that's probably as much as I can talk about Eyes Wide Shut right now because I'm not smart enough to really talk about Eyes Wide Shut. And Southland Tales, of course, is one where it's like I would have to defend why I like it, and I can't. So I've never done a podcast on it. People keep asking for a podcast on it. I can't defend why I like it.
You just talked about it on the most recent podcast that you did.
But again, for like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I think I love hearing you talk about Southland Tales because you make it very clear why it's a movie that's so much more than what people wrote it off as, I think.
Patrick, you said that on my very first podcast on Silence of the Lambs, where you said like, I would like to do a podcast on this show, but I don't know if I necessarily can articulate, and I think you did an excellent job, and I was super proud and happy to be on that show. So I think you should have a little more confidence in yourself.
Well, thank you. I've only been doing it for 10 years, and I still don't have any confidence in myself. But what are some movies for you guys that like you might want to talk about, but you feel like you can't articulate?
Spice World.
I'm annoyed that in Southland Tales, the director blocked this movie on Twitter in year one. For inexplicable reasons. We were following him and promoting the movie, and all of a sudden we were blocked. So, fuck you in the face.
Oh. Wow. Doug coming on strong.
The two that come to mind, in 33 years of teaching film in high school, I never showed Citizen Kane. Because I never wanted to be in a position where I had 30 angry teenagers and I was trying to explain how important this movie is. Every time I watch Citizen Kane, it's like I'm watching a different movie. It's like every single time I watch it, it's different. I can't anticipate the order of the vignettes. It's astounding. I once took some students downtown to the Music Box to see one of the restorations, and it left them dumbstruck. They loved it so much. When it was over and the lights came up, I turned and I was like, what'd you think? And they were speechless. And this isn't like teacher bullshit, I'm making it up after the fact. They literally had a hard time gathering their thoughts. So at some point we might want to scale that mountain. The other one, and I was looking at the movie thing on F This Movie where you can find the things in the index, and this really surprised me. National Lampoon's Animal House was this very special movie because the summer it came out was the summer after my junior year of high school, and me and my friends went to see it every single night for 4 months. Movies played longer then. And no matter what else we were doing, we ended up at the Woodfield One and we watched Animal House again. And I've never written about it. And we've never done a podcast on it. That I just found this out today. That was astounding to me. Why have we avoided that? Does everyone else hate it?
No, comedies in general, we don't podcast a ton on comedies because it really just comes down to this is funny or this isn't funny. And because it's so subjective, it's like, well, what would be the point? So we've done some comedies, and there's, I'm actually weirdly proud of an episode that Doug and I did on American Reunion, which is a garbage movie. That other side, Doug, the other side. which is a garbage movie, but we found all this stuff to say about it. But we could try Animal House. I'd be down to try it.
I have something to bring to the party on that one because we watched it so many goddamn times. We started to notice weird things. Flash forward 2 years, we get tickets to the Chicago premiere of Blues Brothers, and my best friend and I are hanging out in the lobby after the show, and there's John Landis. And we went up to him and struck up a conversation. He was the nicest guy on earth. And we started telling him all these things we had noticed in Animal House. And he was like, oh, cool, you noticed that? Well, here's the deal with that. And it was astounding. And that got us invited to City Hall the next day. And we got to meet John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. So what do you know?
I think comedies are tough. And I think
More interesting than mine.
when you've mastered it with Anchorman and American Reunion, why go back to that well?
I haven't seen Anchorman in a dog's age. Does it hold up?
Sure.
Does it?
Sure.
I love some movies like Five Easy Pieces or Paths of Glory that I really just, they get me, like, just very emotionally, moved. But I don't know how I would talk about them and feel like I'm doing them justice because I have no firsthand historical context for the time that they were released. And I feel like I'm not the right person to talk about it because I would only be talking about it from, just kind of I don't know. I'm worried that I would sound like the young guy on YouTube who doesn't know anything about movies.
Here's what we do, Adam. We do the first F This Movie remote. We go to 5 different restaurants and you try to just get a side order of toast. And that's the podcast on 5 Easy Pieces.
I want to speak real quick to what John was saying earlier about Citizen Kane. And I taught film for a couple of years, high school film. And when I showed Goodfellas to a class, you would have thought that they had never seen the movie before. They were absolutely entranced, befuddled, overcome by the fact that a movie could do this. And I got away with a lot as a high school teacher.
Well, I was just going to say, ooh.
Yeah, well, in inner city
Philadelphia, a high school class. That's amazing.
It was a 12th grade elective, and they were allowed certain things, and I was like, I can show them whatever. And I was like, I'm going to show them Goodfellas because we had a genre unit. I showed them, Mafia or genre unit, and I showed a lot of movies those years, and no movies. I still get emails from students with like Henry Hill references.
I had an experience like that with The Searchers.
Yeah.
And kids have all these preconceived notions about Westerns. And I would like to think that in the classroom when the movie was showing, I could tell how they were reacting to it. No film has ever had a reaction in my classroom like The Searchers. Yeah. They could not believe that it was about what it's actually about. The kids immediately picked up on, oh, this is this, because they were expecting John Wayne waving the flag and winning World War II. And halfway through, most of them caught on. And I had never had a mood like that in the class when the film was actually unspooling.
I had 2 experiences like that. One was showing Goodfellas. The other one was when I did a screenwriting unit and I showed them the needle scene from Pulp Fiction. And I gave them the script pages from the needle scene in Pulp Fiction, and they acted them out in the class. And we went through the scene and we talked about pacing and beats and performance. And then I showed them, they hadn't seen the movie before. And I showed them after we were done, like 3 days later, I showed them the actual scene, how Tarantino envisioned it with the camera moves and with the performances. And they were like and they were like blown away by it. And to this day, I got emails recently from students about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, Mr. D, I saw that Tarantino movie and it was like amazing. And here's what I think about it. And
That's
it was
terrific.
Like, it was like one of the best like moments of my teaching career, because you got to see this unspeakable, unrepeatable moment in a person's life where they were like, they saw Goodfellas or they saw Pulp Fiction for the first time.
And you picked the right scene, because my memory is, you guys in the little boxes check me on this.
Yeah.
When Pulp Fiction was actually playing in theaters, that scene made some people faint.
That's the lore. The lore.
That's my memory of it.
Yeah, that's the rumor.
Are we just skipping over that they call you Mr. D?
D. Cristino is hard to say.
Oh, not like Baudelaire.
No, a lot of kids called me Mr. B.
Yeah.
Do we need an F this movie textbook on how to teach film? Because Erica could contribute, Patrick could contribute.
We all could.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I could not.
Her poems from Jen. I mean,
The F this movie guide
Draft
to
day.
effing this movie
I like it.
by the editors.
Anybody else with a movie you love but you have a hard time explaining? You know how much I love Hoop Dreams, and I could talk about Hoop Dreams every day, all day. Maybe I do. And I talked about it on the podcast before. Did we do a whole show about it?
Nope.
No, we did not. But I think it was in my top 5.
Yeah.
But I remember as soon as we were done recording that show, I was mad at myself because I felt like I did not explain at all why I really love Hoop Dreams. I just couldn't do it, you know.
Erica, hard time explaining is not in your vocabulary.
Yeah.
Do you have any, I maybe missed, do you have any podcasts that are solely a documentary?
Does Stop Making Sense count? That's a concert film.
Still very proud of that one.
So good. That movie is, I mean, that podcast too, but I watched that the other day. It was so good.
I watched it for the first time too. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think during the early days of the Criterion Channel, I think the Criterion Channel had stopped making sense for a month or two. And suddenly a whole bunch of people on the Twitter machine were seeing it for the first time. God damn, that movie's great.
The Twitter machine, take a drink.
So on the topic of movies it's hard to talk about, my challenge is always a movie that I love, but there's something kind of hashtag problematic about it, or something that makes me uncomfortable. So I can explain that I love it, but I can't quite defend it. So the first ones that come to mind for me are Dirty Harry, which I wanted to give 5 stars to when I watched it last year for the first time. But then I was like, but he's like this horrible cop who's like doing vigilante justice. Why do I like this movie? And so that's like a tough one for me to talk about, because I love it, but I also kind of hate myself for loving it. But then I'm like, but it's really well made. And
that's
also,
what makes it so great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know like not every movie has to have a likable hero, but man, that movie was a struggle for me. And then also I recently watched Lena Wertmüller's movie Swept Away, which I don't know if you guys are familiar at all, but there's like a romance between people who are stranded on an island, but the romance starts with some pretty unpleasantries between them, and it's a little assaulty, to say the least. So I loved the movie, but I also was like, I don't know, this makes me uncomfortable, but I also love it. So stuff like that, where it's like very difficult to sort of pin down the morality of it, but it's still an entertaining movie. Those are the tough ones to talk about for me.
A long time ago, I took over an adult education class at night for a fellow teacher. He was on a Fulbright in Poland, and he taught an adult education class on the foreign film. And there was a regular group that would just keep taking this class every semester, and he showed different movies. So it was like this ongoing group movie club where they paid tuition and he got paid. So I took over for one semester, and one night I showed these 10 middle-aged suburban couples Swept Away. You have never heard the range of conversation when we started to talk about the film. And for the most part, it all fell into this really disturbing, all the women had your opinion, which is true. That's what makes the film so weird and great and dangerous, because the way their relationship starts is very problematic. And every guy who was like a 50-year-old suburban guy were getting their wives angry by saying things like, you know, some women like that. It was very uncomfortable and very delightful, and I got paid for it.
But guys, don't you think that's kind of part of why we love all different kinds of movies? Because they can get away with some stuff in a way that we can watch and love and relate to without having to be those people?
Lena Wertmuller was aware when she made that film. Even I think a lot of people watch it and they're like, oh, the 70s. Lena Wertmuller was very aware of what she's doing in that film, because all you have to do is watch Seven Beauties. That was her stock in trade. She was trying to make you feel very uncomfortable about certain things that tend to make people feel uncomfortable.
I know when I watched Van Wilder for the first time, I didn't like the scene where they're masturbating a dog as the filling for the donut. I'm like, this movie's not 5 stars. I'm not going to go as far as that. But it's a really funny movie. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with this, even though the bad guys are the ones who ate the dog juice.
There was a
show. You know, that's
I
interesting, Doug. There's a similar scene in Babyface.
There was a show that Patrick and I were going to do, but then we dropped it. It was on Tarantino ripoffs. And I knew that I couldn't do the show when I watched Boondock Saints. And I'm like, I like Boondock Saints. And it's horrible, like morally and from a filmmaking perspective. But there's enough carrots in there that I like when we wrote about One False Move, its greatness is just like self-evident to me. So it's kind of like, well, what do I really say about this that is any different? But then when we wrote about Split Second, I was like, this movie hasn't been dug into yet. And
Doug.
That was, yeah, Doug. And then that was exciting because I had stuff to say about it and like from a different perspective than I've heard from anyone else. So I find that more with great movies is like everybody's aware of its greatness. So what else can you really say about it?
Yeah, that's why I tend to write about the things that I tend to write about, because I feel like, well, I can maybe bring something to this that hasn't been, you know, written about a million times before, and maybe I can champion something that hasn't been as championed, you know, as a lot of other stuff. And again, it's fun when you're able to see a movie through somebody else's eyes. When we did about 2 months ago, for my birthday, we were under quarantine, but Erica came up with this idea of doing another tweet-a-thon and insisted that I do it because I was not going to celebrate. But she insisted that we do it, and I came up with movies that I was like, well, these are movies that I like that maybe not everybody likes, and I'm going to force people to watch them. And it was interesting, people's reactions were, I think, like you had said earlier, Adam, were sort of influenced by trying to watch it through my eyes. So it's like, well, this isn't something that I would have given a chance to, but I'm actually really enjoying, you know, this Albert Pune movie, or Avatar is better than I, you know, had initially thought, or whatever. And that I think is one of the, it's no Babyface.
John, what's happening?
It's no Independence Day resurgence. Let's say that. Which is still the worst movie, I think. That's a question I want to ask. What's the worst movie you guys have all had to watch?
Because
that you've written about or that you've podcasted about?
The Last Face. The Last Face.
Oh, The Last Face for life. Yeah.
Hashtag The Last Face. The worst movie ever made. The Last Face.
Atlas Shrugged Part 3. Easy. That movie was so terrible.
Alice in Acid Land.
Wow.
Look it up.
That October built.
Oh, that's right. You hated that movie.
It really made me mad.
Johnny, didn't you also have to watch Dick Shark though?
That sounds great.
I didn't keep up my end of the bargain on Dick Shark. That's when that exercise ended, where I was just like, I just can't do it.
That was our review of The Humbling. Risky was like, I can't.
My therapist has suggested that I'm in denial about Dick Shark.
Yeah.
Because you could go back and read the column, but oh my God. Alice in Acidland deserves to go on that congressional list of movies to be preserved compared to Dick Shark.
Are you saying Dick Clark?
No. Dick Shark.
Clark?
It's a guy whose last name is Shark.
Let me give you a
Sharp?
preview, Eric.
Sharp.
This gentleman wants to enlarge his genitals, and he puts some sort of lotion on himself that turns his junk soft and malleable.
I'm on so far. Okay.
For some reason, he molds it into a shark that then bites his girlfriend. She shoots him, cuts off the eponymous member, flushes it down the toilet, where it ends up in the water supply, and it grows to enormous proportions. I'm not making this up. This is a real movie.
Dick Clark.
The biggest
Dick Shark.
The biggest problem with the movie is its hackneyed storyline, I think.
Well, I think the biggest problem with the movie is that it's 2.5 hours long.
Can we stop talking about how long something is and how big it is in a shark movie?
Well, there's a shark, but I'm here to tell you that's not the Dick Shark.
Isn't that the problem with most movies, is that they're too long? That's what I think. I think most movies are too long. I think
I bought it at Flashback Weekend from the Dick Shark people, and they had the Dick Shark there on the table because I have a picture of myself holding the eponymous member.
No one tell him that movie doesn't exist.
In fact, Eric, they recently edited it down to a more manageable length. It's upstairs because it's a DVD.
Where's Jan?
Man, what's happening?
They recently edited it down to a more manageable length and renamed the film Frankenshark, I think.
All these years of marriage, and Dick Shark is where she finally cut and run.
It's available in 2 versions. When I wrote the column, Risky wrote something in the comments that I still think is one of the funniest things I've ever read on F This Movie. He suggested that me playing the DVD was the film's premiere.
All right, let me ask this question. Since we've been at this for 10 years, I know at some point Jan's going to produce a DVD of Dick Shark, and we'll be back on that. But let me ask this: aside from getting Rosalie on the podcast very soon, what's something that everybody would like to do in the next, let's say, year at F This Movie? Whether it's a podcast, a piece that you're wanting to write. Eric's obviously going to write the entire F This Movie rock opera, which is happening very soon. Is there a movie that you dream about podcasting about, or something that you would like to cover at F This Movie? Oh, hold on. Here's Dick Shark making its appearance.
A little bit closer, Jan.
A little bit closer now.
Yeah, there it is.
Do we need to maybe record a commentary for Dick Shark?
I will say I'm probably one of the few F This Movie contributors who has had his white whale. I got Silent Hill. I got Pitch Perfect. I mean, in terms of the movies that I have zero right to defend and yet still defend, I feel like I've had my cake and I've eaten it too. So I look forward to hearing, some of the other pet projects and secret shames of everybody else. or not. It's fun too.
I've always wanted to talk about Say Anything, but
Oh, yeah.
I love that movie.
Why didn't you say anything till now?
Mostly because
Nice, Rob.
everybody will make fun of me.
No.
Everybody says, is that a can opener? Everybody asks about my tattoo. They're like, what is that? And I was like, no, it's Say Anything. You know, John Cusack, like the 80s, Ione Sky. And they're like, I don't remember. I'm like,
show the We Bought a Zoo tattoo on the other arm.
But it kind of goes back to like the earlier question too. Like that's a very intimidating movie to me because I think it's been talked about a lot, and a lot of people really love it, and I really love it, and I just don't know if I could do justice ever talking about it.
The effort is to articulate something that hasn't been articulated before, and it's so hard to do that because you're like, I'm building on the experience of others and the experience of the filmmakers, and no, it's one of those movies. It's like, how do you say something different about it? And yet, it's so insanely personal to you. It's amazing how movies can be like, I think like Star Wars, and it's like, I would never include Star Wars on a list of my favorite movies, and yet Star Wars is one of my favorite movies. But it's like, Star Wars is one of a lot of people's favorite movies.
Everybody's.
And I can't necessarily claim that as a personal, like you can't claim that as a personality facet, but it's like you still have that thing about you that makes you feel that in a way that you're not necessarily sure if others have, but you won't know that until you try to articulate it. So I think to return to Patrick's original question is like, you want to try to find that thing about that movie that you haven't been able to articulate yet, but that also defines you as a movie lover or defines you as a person. And you don't know it until you get to that point. You don't know it until you've actually articulated it. And sometimes you don't come up with it until you're in the moment. And that's impossible to know. And it takes a lot of courage to do that, on a podcast or on anything else. And it's tough. Anyway, I got to Say Anything tattoo.
Pretty sweet.
I think just to go to Rob's point about talking about Star Wars, I think that's why I never want to talk about it, or I feel like our site doesn't necessarily have a lot on Star Wars necessarily, because what are we going to say to that point? I think sometimes that's why we sort of drift. I won't say we, just maybe myself. I end up drifting into like these really narrow corridors of like stuff that no one has seen, and then because it's just easier to talk about because like no one else has anything to say about it.
Yeah.
But then then I go down this rabbit hole of just finding like something that no one has seen, which I think all of us have like fallen into sometimes. Dick Shark. So anyway, yeah.
Dick Shark.
This might be the quarantine talking, but I think I'm ready for Hellraiser, Patrick, to like tackle that franchise.
Patrick, come back. Come back.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
All right. Yeah, sure.
Patrick, we're doing Resident Evil.
Yeah, I mean, there are still franchises we haven't tackled.
These next 10 years are going to be a bitch.
I was just going to say, Mike, you and I are giving Patrick part-time jobs because Scream Factory has been putting out these amazing Hammer editions. 2 weeks ago, Curse of the Werewolf.
I just watched that.
Next week, Evil of Frankenstein. In June, the Herbert Lom Phantom of the Opera. And I had talked to Patrick briefly about this a couple weeks ago, that I think in October, our Scary Movie Month podcast is going to be Hammer-rama.
Oh, that is awesome, because I've spent a lot of my quarantine. I was telling Patrick a while ago that the Hammer was a blind spot for me, so I've watched quite a bit recently. And
yeah, they're so good, and
they are.
He nicely agreed to this crazy notion.
That's very
nice.
nice.
Of those movies be laid on a baby?
On an early Halloween CD, I had the trailer for Curse of the Werewolf. And every time I listened to that, I think of you because you used to repeat that all the time. You can unmute anytime. You used to say that a lot.
It was Patrick and myself from that Music Box Massacre of Horrors 24-hour marathon. They showed us Curse of the Werewolf, and that trailer, it was laid on. It was the moon, the full moon. It was laid on a baby.
Because on the new Blu-ray, they not only have the trailer, but they have the trailers from Hell commentary. So just recently, I watched the trailer like 5 more times and had wonderful memories of you, sir.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I also like you.
You guys, I've been dreaming of this pairing.
2 men and a lady.
I really want to do another heavy action all stars podcast.
That was fun.
Yep.
I want to do either a column or a podcast called The Two Jakes, where I talk about the filmography of Jake Busey and Jake Gyllenhaal.
I like it. I like it. Start it tomorrow.
Yes.
Rosalie is the secret genius of episode.
Not sure.
For sure, at least Jake Busey will read it.
Your column will be the premiere.
Can the first column talk about Starship Troopers?
What happened to the Pope's hat? Where'd the Pope's hat go?
I just saw Santa.
In the interest of variety, I've been changing my hat about every
I can't
10 minutes.
this until
Because you see, Rob, I wear many hats.
I know you do. And
Yeah, his office is right next to our hat storage. So
Yeah, wait, Jan and John are married. Where are you in relation to each other right now?
I'm in my office.
Okay.
And she's at a nearby Motel 6.
I bet I've slept
in Los Angeles 2019.
Okay, I've been in it all.
Oh.
Beautiful.
Los
See,
Angeles
there's no
2019
COVID
like
where
nice
she
time.
is. There's just murderous robots.
I'll take it.
We should probably wrap up,
No.
everybody.
What?
Yeah, it's
No.
Never.
But
This
was
hasn't even been like Cloud Atlas length.
no, not even.
Okay.
But thank you guys all for taking the time out to do this. Thank you guys for. Oh wait.
I'm sorry, Patrick. I don't mean to interrupt your.
I think you do.
But I do. I don't mean to. I just want to throw out there, being that I'm writing something sort of along the lines for later this week. But I just want to throw out there that I was nobody. I still am, but
Not to us, Rob.
love you, Jen. Patrick, years ago, I wrote to you as a guy who grew up with movies, grew up in a video store, became an English teacher, loved writing, didn't really realize that after all of the attempts at screenplays and fiction that he was supposed to write about movies. I didn't know that I found my home until I started writing for you. I didn't know that I was going to be as comfortable, as welcome, as a part of all of this. I didn't know that I was going to meet some of my best friends in the world. I started writing for This Movie at a place in my life where I was not sure really what my purpose was. And I was seeing a therapist, I still am seeing a therapist, and I advocate therapy. And they said to me, you love this site, you love these people, write to them, tell them, that you think you might be of use. And I randomly emailed you out of the blue, Patrick, and I said, I think I might be useful to you. And you emailed me back, And I didn't know that it was going to be as big a part of my life as it is now. I didn't know that I was going to meet some of my best friends, people that I couldn't live without, events that I didn't know that I would be able to not have at this movie fest, etc. The fact that I could talk to every people on this chat right now, when I needed to, and people that would make me feel like I had found family in a way that I didn't necessarily know that I had. For those of you who are watching this and aren't with us, I'm nobody from nowhere. I'm not from Chicago. I don't know, I didn't grow up with the Bromleys. I don't know everybody. But I've met some of my favorite people in the world through this. And I've gotten opportunities through this that I didn't know I was going to have. And I know this is whatever, but like I really, it's 10 years of F this movie, and I really, really can't express enough how much it means to me. To not only be a fan of this, but to be part of this. And everybody in this chat right now, everybody watching this, everybody reading this, I love you all. And this means the world to me.
Here to Rob.
We love you too, Rob.
We love you too, Rob.
Thanks for that, Rob.
Thanks for coming out and visiting us.
Adam drew a heart. He's a good artist.
I can make a heart.
Yeah, I know like say something profound probably to wrap it up, because it's been 10 years and everything. This, site has become the biggest thing that I do outside of having a family and being a husband and a father. And I'm very, very, very lucky to do it with all of you. I'm very lucky that everybody that I've asked to get involved has agreed and has contributed their talents in any number of ways, whether it's writing, podcasting, music, art, design. So many people do so many different things for this site, and all of my favorite people work for this site, and I'm very, very fortunate. Every new person that has come aboard that's here with us today was one of the best decisions that I made, with asking that person to join us. Mm-hmm. And it's all about finding the right fit. And everybody here is a family, and that's the thing that I've always loved about this site. And I take it very seriously, and I take it very personally. It means a lot to me when somebody, joins us and sticks with us and is here today. And that's all of you. A lot of you guys have been here for a full 10 years. Some of you have been here a little bit less, but you wouldn't know it because we're all very close very quickly.
I lovingly stalked Rosalie.
It's true.
Thank you.
It's true. And again, we're so lucky to have Rosalie with us, and we're so lucky to have Robin with us, and we're so lucky to have Eric with us, and we're so lucky to have Adam, and not Adam Thaz so much, but Adam Risky for sure, and JB and James,
I deserve that,
and Mark and Doug, who's been here since day one, Mike, who's been here since day 0 because we did Young Guns first. I love all you guys, and the person I love the most, besides Doug, is Nicolas Cage. But then beyond Nicolas Cage is Erica, and I've been so lucky to have her be a part of this with me and with all of us, and to have her support and her patience and her understanding and her talent and her enthusiasm. And she's the one who suggests doing a Zoom call and to celebrate the 10th anniversary. And she's really the biggest cheerleader for everything F This Movie related. So thank you, Beau. I love it.
Aw,
Get you
Schmoopy.
Schmoopy.
Sure, you can kiss your wife because she's not at the Motel 6.
But thank all of you guys. And if you guys are watching this, please make sure that on Thursday, May 14th, you join us at 8 p.m. Central. We're going to be live tweeting Toby Hooper's The Funhouse. And then at 10 p.m. Central, we're going to be live tweeting Turbo Kid, which is on Amazon Prime, to celebrate the 10th anniversary. That's the official 10th birthday of F This Movie. So please make sure that you join us. And thank you for watching.
Yay. Thank you, Patrick.
Not yet. Nicolas Cage.
Thank you, everybody. Love
Is
all
that
you
Cannibal
guys.
Holocaust, then Turbo Kid?
Funhouse, then Turbo Kid.
Is that Cannibal Holocaust, then Turbo Kid?
Cannibal Holocaust, then Turbo Kid.
Cannibal Holocaust, then Babyface.
Go White Sox.